I'm an interpreter at State Farm. It's from 11:30 in the morning to 8 o'clock.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad the time worked out for you today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's 11:01. I don't like to start late. We'll take another minute, and then we're going to go ahead and get this show on the road. Anybody else want to introduce themselves before we kick it off?
Morning, everybody. This is Sal Tungaloa out here in Fort Worth.
Hey, Sal.
Good morning.
Hey, Tim. Morning.
Welcome. I think you attend all these subject to calls, don't you?
This is, I think, the second one.
Good. Well, it's an exciting strategy, and it certainly is an exciting time in the business for this strategy to be studying it for everybody. So with everything that's going on, we'll talk more about that as we get into the presentation today. So, okay. Without any further ado, Pam, if you would go ahead and put everybody on mute for the moment.
Okay.
We're going to go ahead and kick this thing off. Welcome, everybody. My name.
Hold on. I muted you. Sorry.
Okay, let's start over. My name's Tim with the West DFW REI Group. Welcome to my presentation today on buying houses with no money. And, you know, there's a lot of variations in the topic, you know, the subject line, what we can call it. But basically, you know, right now, it's an excellent time to get into it with the pandemic that's in play and doesn't appear to be going away anytime soon, unfortunately. But for us, I think it's going to be a big part of our businesses in the very near future, as long as you learn the strategies and how to implement this into your business. I'm not saying that this is the only strategy you should be doing for the new folks on the call, but it's certainly a strategy that I think is going to be well used in your toolbox, because there's a lot of things that I think you're going to see a lot of deals coming your way that this strategy is going to apply for. Before we get into the presentation, though, one of the things I want to do is make sure that for all the new folks on the call that you have met our sponsors. We have some great sponsors in the group, and you know, it's not like we can go do physical meetings today and go shake hands, and of course you don't want to be shaking hands right now, but these sponsors are sponsors you can trust. And for those of you that have been in the group a while, I used my grandmother's rule, and that is if you would feel comfortable sending your grandmother to a contractor and having them do business with them, would you sleep good at night? You know, and if the answer is yes, then we're pretty comfortable with those sponsors. So that's how one of the ways they qualify to be a sponsor in the group. So we appreciate sponsors. They've been around the business a long time. Most of them have been sponsors with us for a very long time, which has to tell you something. So let's go ahead and just kind of go through the list for the sponsors that are here. Go ahead and unmute yourself. And I see Michelle. So Michelle, if you want to start out, just a quick, you know, 1 to 2 minute intro and say who you are, what you do, and what you offer our members.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Coleman, and I'm with Burdick Insurance, Dave Burdick's office, and we provide all kinds of insurance products for all types of real estate transactions. We do the subject to wraps a lot, and the subject to wrap transaction is from an insurance standpoint, something that not a lot of people know how to do correctly. We see them done incorrectly a lot of times, and it has to do with getting all the parties listed correctly on the policy, and if they're not, you could run into a problem with your with the original bank, or with possibly having a claim paid. So you don't want to have that. So we have a lot of years of experience doing this. We've been in business since 2002, and we've known Tim a really long time, probably going on 10 years now or so. And
Probably a little
we are,
longer.
yeah. Dave's known you for quite some time. So we insure all types of landlord insurance for people that have buy and holds, people that are doing flips, and people like say that are obviously doing the subject to wraps, which we're talking about today. So any type of insurance that you would need for being an investor, that is what we specialize in, and that's where we've made our little niche. So if you guys have any questions about your current insurance, feel free to give us a call. Our phone number is 817-719-2613. And our website is insuredfw.com. You don't have to be a customer of ours for us to help you out with any questions that you might have. So feel free to give us a shout. We'll help you any way that we can.
Thank you, Michelle. So for anybody, before I forget this, this is for the sponsors as well as everybody else on this call. I'm big on networking and helping you build your buyers list and building your sponsors, your contacts and stuff. So feel free to jump over in the chat box and put down your name and your phone number and the services you offer so that everybody can see that. The chat is shared amongst everybody on the call. So if you would like to share that, and if you're a buyer, what kind of properties you buy, put that in there, and what areas you buy, and the sponsors do the same thing, and then that way you can get your information out to everybody. So thank you, Michelle. One thing I would say about Burdick Insurance is that they're definitely an investor-friendly insurance company. Dave and I have known each other a long time, and we've done a lot of sub-2 deals together. And they will be, somebody from the office, Dave or somebody, will be involved in our subject to workshop that we're doing on 8 August. So mark your calendars, 8 August. And Dave will chime in during that time to teach you how to make sure you get your insurance done correctly. Okay, moving on here. I see Mr. Fred there on board. You want to unmute yourself, Fred, there, and tell us about AOSAIR?
Yes, sir, Mr. Tim. How's your day going?
Good, good.
All right,
Just
sweet.
give us for the sponsor,
quick
just
rundown. Gotcha.
1 to 2
Okay.
minutes, please.
Gotcha. Well, my name's Fred Edwards, and I represent IOSAIR. We're an HVAC company that's based out of Burleson. I think I got it right that time. We provide full installations, air conditioning and heating, and seasonal inspections for equipment, HVAC equipment, and we do emergency calls as well. Also, again, keep in mind that it's a very seasonal time for you guys down there. I'm in Arkansas, so it's not as hot for me, but you guys, the air conditioners got to go. They got to work. So we provide all that for you. We're a veteran-owned company, and we provide quality work while trying to make things more affordable. That being said, we don't take shortcuts. We provide great service, and we would love to have your business. I'll post up, I'm not going to be able to stay for the whole meeting, but I'll post up all the company info, my email, my phone number, the main company email and phone number as well. And if nobody's got any questions for me, you can always email me. Like I said, I'll put that all up in the chat box. So,
Thank you, Fred.
all right. Thanks, Tim.
All right, who's next? Who's the other sponsors we have on the call? I'm looking through the list now.
I don't think there is any others.
Okay, yeah, I don't see any others either. So having said that, we'll go ahead and get started here. Let me go get my presentation. Give me a second here to do a screen share. Okay, can everybody see my screen? If you would drop a note in the chat if you can see it. Okay, somehow my chat's disappeared. Are you seeing it, Pam? Okay. Okay, so some of you may have seen this before. I've done this presentation quite a few times, and it's always a very popular event because it's a creative strategy that really works in any kind of market that we have. And it is my belief, I have no factual data to this, but it is my belief that this is going to become extremely popular and in demand here in the near future because of COVID-19. This is a service that, or not a service, but a skill set, a tool in your toolbox, as I like to call it, that works in any market, and it's actually how I built my business. Many people start off with wholesaling, which is a great strategy, and it's an easy way for most people to get started in the business with no money, but so is subject to. And I just happened to learn it early on in my career 20 years ago, and I've just fallen in love with it. And one of my key mentors that I started with was Ron LeGrand, and I know several of you know him. And in one of my very first, I think it was the very first seminar or boot camp, as we call them, that I went to with him, he made a statement to me that stuck to me still to this day. And it was, if you don't write a check, you can't lose money. And that makes so much sense to me. And it applies to any kind of deal, but it really applies to the subject to deals because you're not putting out a lot of cash if you're doing them right, if you're doing them how we teach them. And it allows you to leverage other people's money and still own a lot of properties because you have no limits on what you can buy. So with regards to the market today, this is a huge opportunity. You know, a lot of the economists and stuff and a lot of realtors and a lot of people you talk to will try and make you believe that the market's strong, and it is strong for retail buyers today. But one of the big problems is, from what I'm seeing and hearing, is that, you know, the people that list a house today, they get a good price out of it and it sells quick because there's so low inventory, very little inventory. And the reason there's little inventory is people are hesitant to sell. One, they don't want somebody going through their house that may have COVID. Two, they may not even have a job right now because they've been laid off or fired, lost their job completely, whatever the case, or maybe even sick. So they aren't listing houses. So if you have a house to sell, then it's a pretty strong market for selling it. But what is going to happen, in my opinion, is if unemployment stays the way it is, if the government turns off the unlimited funds for unemployment, if they stop paying them more to stay at home than they do to go to work, then you're going to see a lot of people come to the reality that they're going to start falling behind in the payments, and they're going to have to start making up the payments that they fell behind on. And a lot of people aren't going to be able to do that. I believe that the people that had strong careers, professional careers, made good money, make good financial decisions, they'll bounce back. They'll get their payments caught up, and they will move on and not have a problem. But I also believe that the people that struggled before COVID-19, they may be the ones that are not going to make it through this tough time, and they may be going into default and may be looking for options to sell their house quickly and either prevent further damage to their credit, or maybe just, you know, they're facing foreclosure and they're trying to stop that foreclosure. That's just my 2 cents. My crystal ball has not been real accurate, doesn't guarantee anything. That's just the way I think. And many others do as well. So without any further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and get started here and teach you what I know, and see if this is gonna help you in your real estate investing business as well. So I have been doing subject to deals for the past 20 years. And what you're going to see here is a lot of notes and lessons learned along the way that I've learned. So I'm just going to share all this stuff the best I can with you. Everyone can hear me okay. If you don't mind, put your phone on mute so that, and keep yourself on mute. If you do have something to say, go ahead and unmute yourself. I would suggest that if you can hold the questions, do it till the end, and maybe put it in the chat, and we'll try and address it that way, because I'm probably going to answer a lot of those questions along the way here. Okay. If you happen to have any kind of quality issues in the video or sound, one of the first things I recommend you do is turn off your video. You can do that by clicking up on the image and the little 3 dots there, and which is a little menu, and turn off the video. A lot of times that'll solve the problem. Okay. Zoom's a good program, but you know, you could have a bandwidth issue, a Wi-Fi issue that may cause a problem. Keep yourself on mute unless you're not speaking. My assistant Pamela is on the call as well, and she's monitoring the chat. Pam, you want to chime in and say hello?
Good morning. I am here watching. If you have any questions, you can call the office and I can help you out there if we can't do it through chat. And glad to see you all this morning.
So her number is 817-599-8058. 817-599-8058. And if you need help, just give her a call. I know I'm gonna skip this, but I know that we've got folks calling in from all over the state. If you don't mind, drop it in the chat box where you're calling from. I know Mark's from Houston, and we've got some from San Antonio. It's always interesting to me to find out where people are calling in from. This strategy, just an FYI, in case we have anybody outside the state, the strategy applies everywhere. You might have specific laws and stuff in your state if you're outside Texas from anything we're talking about here. So just kind of keep that in mind. So drop in the chat box, how many people have had a free house given to them? How many people have done sub-twos in the past and gotten a free house? Drop that in the chat, please. Just curious how many may have received a free house before. Okay. For some reason, my chat has completely disappeared. There it goes. I found it. Okay. A lot of capability to this thing, and depending on how I click, the chat moves on me. So let me, okay. Yes, we got folks all over the place. I see several that have done sub-2 deals, gotten free houses. And it's a cool strategy. I think you would all agree to that. I love it. I've been doing it for a long time. Okay, give me a second here. Okay, so if you would, try and keep the questions to the end, and then we'll do a Q&A session at the end as well in case we didn't cover them during the presentation. What we're going to cover is why it's so important to learn this call. I already kind of addressed a couple of these things here. We're going to talk about what does the buying houses subject to and no money really mean, because I know there's some new folks on the call. A lot of people don't realize what that really does mean. We'll talk about what makes a good sub-2 deal, and we'll talk about what makes a bad sub-2 deal. And yes, there could be bad subject to deals. Not just because somebody wants to give you a house, that doesn't mean it's going to be a good deal. We'll talk about the advantages of buying subject to, the disadvantages, and what kind of homeowners would consider selling this way, as well as what kind of houses you can expect to buy in this type of transaction. We'll cover the risk in today's market. We'll talk about the risk to the seller. We'll talk about your exit strategies and whether or not they've changed at all with COVID. We'll talk about the Garn-St. Germain Act of 1982, what to do if a lender calls a mortgage due, what can cause you to lose sleep at night. And trust me, when you're doing sub-2 deals, if you don't do it right, you could end up losing some sleep at night. And I'm sure the ones that have done the deals on the call here today would agree with that. Setting expectations for success. Very important that the seller understand what to expect. Very, very important. What not to do, that's probably a good thing to understand, right? The things not to do, and how to get sub-2 deals closed. And on the workshop day, we'll have Martin Garcia or somebody from his staff to talk about getting those sub-2 deals closed. And then we'll talk about the workshop itself on 8 August. Just so I don't lose anybody, if anybody has to leave the call, you can go to the calendar and you can see the 8 August event is the workshop. There are, that is a paid event. It's an all-day workshop. Unfortunately, it's going to have to be a virtual event using Zoom. So we will have an interactive call that day on Zoom. We are not in a position where we can do the group event, unfortunately. But go to that event and get registered. If you register before midnight on 1 August, that's the deadline for the discounted rates. If you're a member of the West DFW REI Group, you get an additional discount on that. But we have an early bird discount. It's all laid out at the bottom of the event on 8 August. So go check that out. Just wanted to mention that before everyone if anybody had to leave the call early. Who am I? My name's Tim Cook. I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. Met my wife on Christmas Eve, home from boot camp on a blind date. Married 5 months later and just passed our 45th anniversary. Hard to believe that time has gone by. I retired after 24 years, so I quit early. People call me quitter. I quit early from the Marine Corps, and I took a job with Lockheed down here to work on the F-35 program, and worked out there for 8 years. Enjoyed it, but after all those years of multiple bosses in the Marine Corps and at Lockheed, I knew that I didn't want to stay there, so I started studying the real estate investing business in the year 2000. I've spent over $100,000 today in my education to learn this business and to try and not reinvent the wheel from things that other people have already learned. So I was serious about it, and here it is 20 years later, I'm still in the business. So I believe in being a student of the business, so I'm always learning, always trying to learn new strategies, new technologies, new tools, as well as attending other local events to try and keep up with what's going on and what people are doing. And I highly recommend that you do as well. I just believe in that the education needs to be nonstop. I gave my resignation at Lockheed in July of 2005, that I was resigning in July of 2006. Because of all the clearances I had, people thought I wouldn't be allowed to stay another year there. But do you think I was ready to start my business in July of 2005? You know, I really was, because I knew it was a risk. They could have escorted me out in 2005, but they didn't. They let me stay for another year, and I've been full-time ever since July of 2006. My wife kicked me out of the house in 2008 and said, go find an office. So I did that. She got tired of hearing me on the phone all the time in the home office. At the time, she was a part-time nurse, so on her days off, she wanted a little peace and quiet. So she told me, get out and go find an office, and I did that. Now we own an office in downtown Weatherford. We got a great location, just like with houses, location, location, location. We are right downtown. We're by one of the schools, Taco Casa on one side of me, the car wash on the other, the school district across the street. So we have really a high visible location. It's a great location. I was a mentor for all of Ron Grant students for Texas and Canada for about 5 years. And that was challenging. It was fun, but it started to interfere with my business. And I decided that I wanted to resign from that and just stay focused on my business. So I did that for about 5 years. It's amazing how much you learn from others while you're teaching. Even though you might be a new guy, you still learn so much, even being a mentor to others. So it was a lot of fun. I've taught numerous Subject 2 classes over the years, probably more of this class than anything, because it's always such a high demand and interesting topic. That's why I keep doing it. I started the West DFW REI Group in November of 2009. So we just passed our 10th anniversary. As a matter of fact, I have one of our 10th anniversary shirts on, and all of the members, while the supplies last, if you join the group as a new member, then you will get a 10th anniversary t-shirt as well, as long as supplies last. So reach out to Pamela, or just go to the website and click on join and get signed up if you're not already a paid member. Okay, so why is this so important to learn this particular strategy? You know, we have record high unemployment. I don't think anybody can dispute that, right? We are at record high unemployment rates. And if people aren't working, they're not paying their mortgage, many of them. Many businesses are closing for the second time and maybe even a third time. Some of them are going out of business for good. I mean, all you have to do is turn on the news and hear it. You may even have neighbors around you that are suffering and fall into these categories. It's sad that so many people are out of business. Government stimulus checks are not going to last forever, and they're also not going to pay all the bills. It's not a whole lot of money. Now, for some people, it's more than what they were making, which is pretty sad. But it's not a whole lot of money in the big scheme of things. At some point, foreclosure restrictions are going to be lifted, as well as the eviction restrictions, which they have been lifted, at least in some areas, because I had an eviction I started just before COVID hit, and I was called and went to eviction court and was able to get I actually got my house back because they abandoned it anyhow. So, but the eviction restrictions have been lifted in many areas, maybe not everywhere, but eventually they will be. And You may find that those landlords, those owners of those properties, may very well be a lot more motivated today to sell those houses. All of this equals sinking and underwater homes, right? A lot of those homes that people bought, for example, a lot of the out-of-state owners that came in and maybe paid too much for the houses and thinking that Texas was such a strong rental market, a lot of those folks may very well be interested in selling their homes now because of what's going on. Is it a high percentage? Maybe not. But if the longer this drags out, I think the more underwater homes you're going to see. And this strategy works great for even low equity type homes, which I think you're going to see a lot of them as well. And we'll talk about that. We're going to get into great detail during the workshop on how to structure those kind of offers. And I'll have some examples that we'll be covering as well. So why do I believe it's going to happen with the COVID-19 market or any recession? Many people will go back to work. As I mentioned earlier, I already covered this, but a lot of people are going to go back to work, but some of them won't. And the homeowners that I think are going to be the ones that are in trouble are the ones struggling before COVID, because I think they're going to be even further behind now. You can buy houses with no money with owner financing, but that's not what we're really focused on today. We're going to talk about buying houses with no money, really you getting the deed and doing the subject to transaction. We're not going to get into owner finance strategies today. This is all about taking over those underlying mortgages and becoming the owner of that property. It means you take ownership of the property. However, the mortgage will remain in the seller's name. It's not assuming the loan for any of the new folks on the call. If you've never heard this strategy before, this is not assuming. All you're doing is taking ownership, getting the deed on the property, and then taking over those mortgage payments or reselling it and somebody else taking it over, okay? What makes a good subject to deal? A truly motivated seller, a seller with a need to sell fast, and I got to get this screen out of the way. For some reason, I'm having trouble with this. Okay. Need to sell fast regardless of the reason. Seller has bad credit, and it could be, and this is one that's surprising to a lot of folks, is a seller with good credit looking for a fast solution. You know, a lot of times people think that a seller is willing to sell because they have a problem. I'm here to tell you that I've done a lot of deals with people with good credit. They just were looking for a fast solution and they were comfortable with my solution. So keep that in mind. It's not just people that are behind on mortgage payments. A property with one or more mortgages against it and possibly over leveraged. So today you're going to see a lot of houses that have equity because our appreciation in the area has skyrocketed. But that isn't always true. If they've just recently bought it and maybe they just rode it hard and put it away wet and just abused the heck out of the property, it could be over leveraged. So what you'll see is there's a lot of opportunity to still help those kind of sellers in today's market using this kind of strategy. A property in a distressed situation financially behind on payments. That's one of the ones that most people talk about and that they see. In other words, a pre-foreclosure that has problems. And pre-foreclosure could be, maybe they're not even one payment late. Maybe they're past the grace period and they haven't even gotten to the first month. You may find some people, I love it when a person comes to me, and I've had this happen, where they've missed the first payment and they're looking for a solution to sell quickly to protect their credit. And that, I love those people because they're really motivated. They're concerned about their credit. They want a solution to get it done quick. And this strategy works great for that. Property is distressed, in a distressed situation physically, meaning it needs repairs that the owner can't afford. A lot of those kind of people out there. Maybe it's a property with no equity. You know, maybe they just bought it before COVID hit. So they haven't made many payments yet. It could very well be. Some, depending on what source you're reading, some reports are saying that the home values have started to go down some. It's not expected to go down a lot like it did in the past, 2007 and 8, but you can expect some home values to go down. Any others? Anybody else got any idea what might make a good subject to deal? Just unmute yourself and throw it out there to everybody if you do. Okay, moving on. What could make a potentially bad subject to deal? Well, this is just as important to me anyhow as it is what makes a good deal. Properties over leveraged excessively with too many liens. Trust me, you're going to find them. Never say never. You're going to find situations where people have gone out, maybe did some repairs on the house, didn't pay the contractor, maybe didn't escrow taxes, didn't pay their taxes. It could be any number of situations. Could have a lawsuit, could have IRS liens, but that could potentially be a subject to deal. I'm not saying you can't get it done, but you need to pay attention to those kind of situations to make sure. Yeah, and it boils down to being able to pre-screen and do your research, do your due diligence carefully. Property with high mortgage balances and excessive repairs. You know, just because somebody wants to give you the deed on their house doesn't mean that it's a good deal if it's got a ton of repairs. If there's a lot of repairs that's got to be done, you have to work through that carefully to make sure that you're safe and you're not getting into an over leveraged situation where you can't sell it. Property with an uncooperative and difficult seller. I'm here to tell you, this is probably the one that you really need to pay the most attention to, in my opinion, because the subject to strategy is a team evolution, a team effort. It's not just you. You need the cooperation and support of the seller. Even once you do that deal and you buy it from them, and maybe even you have a tenant or an owner finance buyer in the deal, there may come a time that you need to have the cooperation and the communications with that seller. So if you have a uncooperative, difficult seller, if they push back on everything you ask for, everything you say, my suggestion is you put that, check that off as a highly bad, potentially bad deal. Okay, we'll talk more about it in the workshop, but this is one of those that could potentially keep you up at night. Property with too many repairs and arrearages. So if you got a deal where they need a lot of repairs on the house and there's a huge back payments to bring current, that could make that a bad deal. You know, when you start talking about somebody filing bankruptcy and playing the legal game, and I've seen deals that have been in arrears for 4 years. So when you have somebody that hasn't paid payments for 4 years and you have all those fees, all the legal fees, Do you think they're maintaining that house in pristine condition during that 4-year period? If you're saying yes, they are, you're definitely wrong. Most people, if they can't pay the payments, they're not taking care of the house either. It's in need of repairs. It's trashed. It's filthy. I'm telling you that could potentially be a bad deal. Doesn't mean it is, but it's something that should raise your red flags and making sure you look at that angle of it closely when you're pre-screening them. Properties scheduled for the auction and there isn't enough time to solve the problem. I can't tell you how many people have come to me on a Sunday or a Monday before the auction and just doesn't give you any time to respond, to take action. You know, it takes time to do due diligence. It takes time to get out and look at it. It takes time to make arrangements, whether you're cash buyer or private money or hard money. It takes time to get ready and make sure that you're doing the right thing. And sometimes people bury their head in the sand like an ostrich and don't want to take any kind of action until the last second. And those are the kind of people, these are the kind of deals that could be a bad deal. Property with a reverse mortgage. If anybody on the call knows how to do a reverse mortgage subject to deal, I'd love to hear from you. But everyone I've ever looked at, everybody I've ever talked to has said, this is just a deal you want to stay away from. It doesn't work as a subject to deal. Property with a high mortgage balance, excessive back taxes, and repairs. You know, most properties nowadays are going to be escrowed, so you won't see those back taxes, but they are out there and you need to pay close attention to that. You know, all this is math, right? It's a numbers thing. You've got high mortgage, you got excessive taxes, you got repairs. All those things add up where it could very well be that the home is not worth the money and you won't be able to sell it. So you have to be very careful. And I would consider this, I'm not saying, no, you can't do it, but I'm telling you that this is potentially a bad deal. You can go work on anything, by the way. It's just a matter of structuring the deal to minimize your risk. And that's one of the things that, you know, Ron talks about when he says, you know, you can't lose money if you don't write a check. Learn how to structure the deal correctly. If you are brand new in the business, you may have time to go work these weird deals like this. But if you're an active investor, a lot of things going on, it may not be worth your time to try and go work these bad deals, potentially bad deals. So that's one of the things that we'll talk about more in the workshop. What are the advantages of buying subject to? In many cases, you're buying houses with no money, so you're leveraging other people's money. This is one of the best parts about this. You can have no money in this business and still be able to buy houses using this strategy. Low risk because you have minimal money involved, okay? As long as you're structuring the deal correctly and you're negotiating the deal correctly, you're gonna have minimal money involved. Your credit is not required, so it's not affected. This is one of the reasons why I keep an 838 credit score, because I don't buy houses with my personal credit. I use this strategy many times, or private money, but I use this strategy many times so it protects me and doesn't affect my credit. This is one of the great things about it. So even if you have bad credit, it doesn't affect your ability to buy subject to. Quick closings. You can close these deals in a matter of days. You're not waiting on any kind of approvals. You just have to do your due diligence and have time to get documentation taken care of, and you can get these deals done quick. So that's another big advantage. You can help so many families that need to prevent or avoid foreclosure that realtors may not be able to help, okay? That's another huge advantage of this type of deal. Unlimited buying power. No limits financially as to how many properties you can purchase. Zero. The only limitation is you and your team. You may have some other ideas out there of the advantages, but you know, you can drop them in the chat box for everybody to see. I appreciate it, and maybe we can add those to the future classes. Okay, what's the disadvantages of buying subject to? Yes, in my opinion, there could be some disadvantages. Part of this depends on your perspective and what you're doing. There's a lot of work involved. Details. Okay, not the type of deal that a person that doesn't pay attention to detail, is not detail oriented. It's not that, this is not the deal for you. This takes a lot of work. There's a lot of moving pieces to it. That's why this class, the workshop that we're going to do, is so important. If you miss some of the details along the way, this could cause you to stay awake at night. Again, we're going to talk about that. But this really is for a systems type person, a well organized, well thought out type person, and detail oriented in the paperwork and everything you do, making sure I's are dotted, T's are crossed. That's the kind of deal that a subject to deal is. Okay. You're not in the driver's seat and don't have much control if the lender decides to call the loan due. They have the right to call the due on sale clause. And by the way, I just want to mention this, that this presentation will be uploaded to the group calendar for everybody to access. All the presentations and any video and audio will be at the very bottom of the calendar page. When this is done, it'll take a couple days to get it there, but that's where you'll find it. Okay. But anyhow, if the lender decides to call the due on sale clause, then this could take you out of the driver's seat and out of control here. So that is one disadvantage. Now, for the new folks on the call, the due on sale clause, what that means is that if the lender discovers that there's been a change in ownership, the lender has the right. Doesn't say will, it says the lender has the right to accelerate the mortgage or call the mortgage due in full. In 20 years of doing this, I've not seen it happen. I will tell you that I'm going to talk about it more at the workshop. I had one that didn't pay property taxes, and he had a tax loan from a previous year, and because he didn't pay that tax loan, the lender was notified that they were calling the loan due. The tax lien company was calling it due, and they stepped in. But as soon as we brought the payments current, then that stopped that foreclosure. So the lenders don't want to call the loan due. All they want is the payments. And we'll get into more of that. We'll get into that scenario during the workshop. What kind of homeowner will sell to you subject to the underlying mortgage? Motivated sellers that need a creative out-of-the-box solution. Okay? That's the kind of homeowner that's going to sell to you. Distressed sellers, people that are in trouble. They need help. They need a solution. Your challenge and your job is to create a solution and a presentation that solves their problem. This is going to be a part of your making offers. You have to learn how to present your solution and how it's going to solve their problem that they have. That's how you're going to be successful in getting your offers accepted. Sellers that are behind on the payments and their credit's been damaged. Again, they're distressed sellers. They're motivated because they need a solution, but many times it's because of the fact that they're behind on those payments and they're damaging their credit. You will find a lot of people that don't even care about credit anymore. It's a shame, it's surprising, it's shocking, but you're going to see a lot of people that just don't care. Many people want to just get rid of the debt, and that you'll see a lot of those out there. Sellers with great credit that have a job transfer and don't want to worry about making 2 mortgage payments and potentially missing a payment and damaging their credit. I have done a lot of these deals. These are people with great credit, I mentioned it earlier, and they're very conscientious about their credit score and they don't want to impact that. And they start looking for a solution. They get a job transfer. 4 months ago, they would have been real comfortable with going and listing their property and getting it sold because it was such a strong seller's market. And it may still be today, depending on location and circumstances, but then a lot of sellers are being hesitant about having people coming through their house that may have COVID. So that may prevent some of those people from going the conventional way of selling. Okay. Hope this all makes sense. Sellers that have inherited a house and just don't want to deal with it and just want to be done with it quickly, they could very well be a subject to seller. What kind of property can you buy subject to? The bottom line here is it works on all of them, doesn't it? I mean, you could literally buy any kind of property subject to, as long as you have a cooperative, motivated seller. So keep that in mind. It can work on anything. What are the risks to you? We're not talking about the seller here. We're going to talk about the risk to you as the buyer. So in my opinion, it's minimal risk as long as you're structuring the deals correctly. And that's the key here, is making sure that you are getting it structured correctly. We're going to go through some live examples of sub-2 deals that I've done. And if you're coming to the workshop, I would encourage you to fill out the property information sheet that you'll get in your welcome aboard when you register, and bring your sub-2 deals to the class. And we're going to talk about structuring those deals live during the class, as long as you want to talk about them. Okay. Another risk to you is the seller could spaz out on you if you're not paying off the mortgage quickly. This is one of those things that you want to disclose, making sure that your seller understands clearly what your intentions are in the timelines. This is one of those things about setting seller expectations. Does the seller understand exactly what you're going to do for them? It's even no matter how good you explain to them and disclose to them what your plans are, 2 years down the road, their memory's gone blank and they just forget everything you talked about sometimes. So I've got some little tips for you in the workshop on how to prevent that from happening. So timing is critical when you're working with pre-foreclosures, and when you wire funds to bring those payments current to stop the foreclosure. That could be a risk. I had one deal that I wired the funds for a foreclosure on a Monday to stop the Tuesday sale, and we were sweating it. We were down to the wire on getting those funds approved and accepted, so it's very important to make sure you know what you're doing and make sure that you get your funds submitted so that you don't lose out on that deal. That was a risky one. We didn't find out until 10 o'clock that night on Monday night before the Tuesday auction that the funds were accepted and that the house was pulled off the foreclosure list. A lender could call the loan due if you and your buyer fall behind on payments and property taxes. So if you bought the house and you sold it to a renter or a new owner finance buyer and they fall behind on payments and you don't keep it current, that's a risk to you. It certainly is a risk to you. So you have to be careful, make sure you don't fall behind. The market could change and the interest rates could increase and the lender may call the loan due. This is something that's just, there's a lot of speculation that is something that the lenders may want to do, is call, if they find out you bought something sub 2 and interest rates skyrocket and your interest rate is 3%, they may try and push the issue. Never seen it happen. It's just something that a lot of investors and attorneys talk about. Don't know if that would actually happen, but I think it could be a risk. If you don't write a check, you can't lose money. Not sure that that's really a risk, but if you write that check, if you do write a check and you pay a lot of money, I guess I really wrote this incorrectly. But if you did write a check and had a lot of money in it and the lender calls it due, then that could be a risk to you. Okay. The seller could call the lender and tell them how they sold the house. I've heard of this happening where the seller got ticked off at the investor and they thought they were supposed to get paid off sooner, and they picked up the phone and they called the lender and said, hey, I sold my house to this person. How come the loan is still in my name? Is that a risk? It could be, but again, having a cooperative and well understood seller, and make sure he understands what's going on, make sure they're in communications with you, that makes a world of difference and it minimizes the risks. Okay. The market could crash like COVID-19 and buyers or renters could no longer afford the house. Is that a real risk today? Sure. So you have to have a plan. Do you have reserves in place? Do you have a way of being able to keep those payments current so that you don't lose the house? It'd be a shame to have you own that home for 3 or 4 years as a subject to deal and either sold it on a owner finance wrap or sold it or rented it and maybe had some equity building in it, maybe put some money into it for repairs, paying down on that equity. It'd be a shame if that house was lost to foreclosure because the payments fell behind because of tenants or the owner finance buyers. So yes, this could be a risk. Who would ever have thought there would be a pandemic like this and that this type of scenario would be a risk? Who knows? But it's here, it's real, and it's something you have to think about and plan for. Your buyers and renters could move out and leave you stuck with the mortgage and repairs. That's happened to me. You have to adapt and overcome. So you just want to be prepared for that type of scenario and be able to react quickly and have a power team that's going to be able to help you get the property taken care of. If it's been sold, you got to be able to get it back in your name, whether that's a foreclosure, a deed in lieu of foreclosure, whatever it is, you've got to be able to react quickly and be able to get that house fixed up and back on the market. In my opinion, those are all risks. There could be many others out there, quite honestly, that could be risk to you when you're buying houses subject to. What's the risk to the seller? Well, you can probably assume what those risks are. If you put yourself in the seller's shoes, you can probably imagine these risks pretty easily. If you don't pay off the mortgage when you said you would, their credit's still tied up in the house. Well, if somebody was trying to plan something to have that credit available and you didn't do what you say you would do, and by the way, this is a big one to me. You'll hear me talk about this a lot during the workshop, is you need to do what you say you're going to do. This is a credibility issue. You need to start building your credibility today. If you're new in the business and haven't already started, you need to start building credibility with that very first day that you're running your real estate investing business. And this is a big one, because what you need is sellers that you can go back to and say, could I get a testimonial or review of what you thought of our services? Did we do what we said we would do? And that is going to help you considerably for the future when somebody else is looking at your business to take over their mortgage. So keep that in mind. This is a biggie here to me for your business. You could damage a seller's credit by missing payments. Another biggie, right? This could be a big risk to them. You need to be able to explain and be able to overcome these objections. And the thing that we do is we set up all the payments on auto pay. We don't wait to write checks. We don't wait to receive rent payments or mortgage payments from buyers or renters. We set it up on auto pay. And if it's an owner finance wrap that you sold it on, then we use a third-party servicing company with August REI and let them pay the payments. So this is a biggie, and you need to be able to explain to them the systems that you have in place for preventing this from happening. Okay. Your renters or buyers could damage the house, and then you default, leaving the seller with the mess. Well, are you going to let that happen? You need to have a presentation, a story, how to prevent that from happening. Okay. You need to be able to explain it so that they're comfortable with it. Leaving the mortgage in their name could impact their debt to income ratio and lower their purchase power in the future. So this is a pretty common question. And in 20 years, I've never had somebody come back to me and say, I couldn't buy a house after selling my house to you like we did. It's never happened. So what I explain to people, and I've had a lot of conversations with folks, is this is similar to if you were to keep the house and rent it to somebody. Because if you're going to buy a house, now you've moved, you sold your house subject to me, and you're now moving and you're going to buy another house, and you go into the lender and you say, I want to buy this house, and of course they're going to pull your credit, they're going to see that their name is still on the mortgage. Then you're going to be able to present to them a contract that shows that you sold the house. And basically what they're going to do is they're going to give you a credit, so to speak. I don't know what the legal technical lender name would be for this, but they're going to give you a credit for, the fact it's sold, somebody else is paying the mortgage payment, and then they can give you the credit on their debt to income ratio. What you won't get is a dollar for dollar credit on your buying power. So what I mean by that is let's say you would normally qualify to buy a $200,000 house, you might qualify for $180,000 or $190,000. So it won't be a full buying capability that you have, but you'll still be able to buy a house. Now, the other piece of that you have to be sure and explain as well is if their credit sucks, they're probably not going to be able to buy a house. Okay. Then that won't have anything to do with the fact that the mortgage is still in their name. It's going to have everything to do with what their credit or their debt to income ratio is. So you got to be careful on how you explain it. Is that seller that you're buying that house from, do they have an 800 credit score, or do they already have a 500 credit score? Okay, big difference. What's your exit strategies? You can live in it, you can lease it, you can do an Airbnb, which I highly recommend you don't do